Okay, we have changed locations. We were before way over there, and now we're on the North Point side. Same scenario. Fishing right on the water. And been getting bites, but it's not as busy as we'd like it to be. We're waiting for the tide to change. I got one ling. First cast out, I got a ling. Just barely keeper. Nice little. This little crevice right here, probably 25, 30 feet deep. Oh, I see this big roller is about to get my ass wet. Real wet, real quick. We've been standing down here in our waders before and be completely dry. And then the next thing you know, there's water up to your waist. Yeah. And it just comes, or just rises nice and smooth. Doesn't push you around that much, but it's still kind of a sketchy feeling. So we're using a high-low rig. High-low rig is basically just a weight on the bottom of some leader tied on. That's a good one. With two dropper loops coming off the top. I, though, tied it up with only one dropper loop. So instead of it being called a high-low, it's just called a high or a low, or a dropper loop with a hook and a soft plastic. And we've been killing the sea bass on lingcod like that for the most part. And you just basically bounce it along the bottom. Thing is, you can't feel it when you lift up and you set back down. If you can't feel the weight smack something solid, you're in sand. And if you're in sand, you're most likely not going to be catching fish. I mean, there's occasional straggler going in between rocks and whatnot, but you want to be bouncing off of rocks a good majority of the time. Problem with bouncing off of rocks is you lose a lot of gear. But if you're not losing gear, in my opinion, you're not catching fish. You know, you just got to automatically factor in, you know, I'm going to lose a handful of jigs, a handful of hooks, a handful of weights. But, you know, on the other hand, you have going to a fish market, buying the fish for considerably expensive prices, and it's probably been frozen or it's not as fresh. You don't get the thrill, and it's expensive. You know, I think lingcod here is anywhere between $14 to $23 a pound, depending on where you get it, what time of year you get it. Getting a little wet on that one. And sea bass is probably pretty similar. And we can come out of here. Limit for Oregon, I'm in Depoe Bay right now. Limit for Oregon is 5 sea bass. Or you can have a combination of sea bass, greenling, which are sea trout essentially. Any kind of rock fish, rock bass. And then 2 lingcod, 22 inches or longer. So I got one lingcod over 22 inches, just barely over 22 inches. And I got 3 real nice bass that are 5 or 6 pounds. I caught one lingcod earlier in the day. Of course, I didn't have it on GoPro. Didn't have it on, you know, didn't videotape it. But it was a little short anyway, so we let him go. Grow up and be a bigger fish and make more fish. Beautiful day. We're technically at low tide, that's why we're able to get out to this point. Although the tide has switched and I believe we're starting, just barely starting to come back in now. My buddy Drew up there sipping on a beer, relaxing. He's a little bummed today. He hasn't caught as many fish as he normally does. He normally kills it out here. Almost always goes home with his limit. And that's pretty impressive to do, really. Fish. Oh, that's a fish. That's a fish. That's a fish. That's really impressive to do. Oh, broke me off. That's really impressive to do out here from the rocks. Dang it. I wonder whether or not I just pulled it through his lips. Must have spit hook. Yep, I got my gear back, so I pulled the hook out of him, I guess. Hook's still good. That sucks. That was a good fish. It was fighting hard. Let's go again. Anyways, that's the way it goes. You land some, you lose some aren't big enough. You horse a couple and rip it out of their lips. People get out here and get discouraged because they don't catch fish right away, but the problem is the fish will bite on just about anything you put in front of them. You just got to find the schools of fish. It's a big body of water. There ain't fish in every single spot. So you got to find the rock clusters or the kelp or whatever they want to hide on. You got to drag your gear in front of them or your bait in front of them. And if you don't do that, you're not catching anything. Most of these fish won't venture too terribly far away from their home base area to get something. You know, what I mean by that is if there's a lingcod on the bottom and your gear's, you know, your swim bait is 30 feet away, it's not gonna see it and swim all the way over there. You're gonna have to be in the, you know, like a 10-foot radius. You know, they'll come up off the bottom and attack something if it's got the right look or action to it or whatever. But if you got a topwater bait, they're not coming up, you know, 30, 60 feet off the bottom to get your gear. You know, you're gonna have to be in their area. That's why I always say you have to be on the bottom. If you're on the bottom, you're gonna be in the schools of fish for the most part. There are fish in between the bottom and the top of the water column, but it's a little harder to target them. And those fish are typically more line shy. Getting wet. Just hooked myself. That's always good. Take the hook out of the pocket real quick. Oh, that's wet. That's wet.